Now today let's look at lighthouses. Loophead Lighthouse, 72 kilometres west of Venice. It consists of the lighthouse, a bunch of buildings, a perimeter wall and some unusual walls on the site, outside the perimeter wall. There's a view of it from the west, looking back towards Kilkee, and we can see the perimeter wall, and we can see another wall running down to the edge of the cliff on the west side. Looking at it from the air, we can see again the perimeter wall, and we can see to the right hand side, to the east of the perimeter wall, there's a zigzag stone wall with some earth banked up against it. There's a closer view, and the white arrows will show you the wall on the west side and the zigzag wall away on the east side. We do not know what they are for, but if we look at where the walls are aligned to, it's interesting. Looking first at the east perimeter wall, if we follow this line to the south, then that takes us to Dromney Head on the Cork coast. It's a signal tower there, has never functioned as a lighthouse, and it's been there since 1700s maybe. Next is the west perimeter wall, looking away to the south. It doesn't point us anywhere interesting, but if we follow it north, it takes us to the oldest church on Inishark, St. Leo's Church, which has been there for many hundreds of years. Looking at the north perimeter wall, if we follow this line away to the east-northeast, it takes us to Ballinooski near Newmarket and Fergus. Now there's a round ring fort there, which appears on the list of ring forts on the Clare County Library website, and the field layout there seems to have been worked on in the 1800s. The geometrical alignments there link up with the People's Park in Limerick, Glenstall Abbey and a couple of other locations. And it's the blue line coming in from the west that follows the north wall at Loophead and comes in there to the centre of the ring fort. Looking next at the south wall, that line takes us to Knocklong, County Limerick, Kilfrush House, one time home of the High Sheriff of Limerick back in the 1800s. In the garden there's an interesting octagonal stone feature, and this is the point at which that line comes in there from the south wall at Loophead. Back to Loophead again, and if we look at the line coming out, the main building line for the bunch of buildings in the enclosure, that line follows the driveway and out the middle of the front gate down to County Limerick, and it takes us to the old house at Curragh Chase. We can see there the blue line comes in through the centre of the old house at 90 degrees to the front facade. Now let's look at the individual segments of this zigzag wall that makes its way away from the southeast corner of the main wall. The first segment we look at there takes us straight to the round tower in Kilmallock, County Limerick. The second segment points all the way to Parks Castle on the shore of Lough Gill. It's in County Leitrim, just up the river from Sligo town. And if we look at that blue line there arriving from Loophead, it sits perfectly along the perimeter wall at Parks Castle, so there was some geometric relationship between the two sites. The next segment of wall we look at points us to Templemore, County Tipperary. There's a convent there. Same as in Nina, the convent has a feature garden and a central point in the garden which had a marker. It's now a religious statue. Same as in Nina. And that serves as a mapping reference point for a number of sites in the middle of Ireland. If we go out in different directions from this site in Templemore, we get to places like Mount Millery and Holy Cross Abbey. Back to Loophead again. The next segment of wall points us at the statue of Brendan the Navigator on Feenit Pier. There's an aerial view looking back towards Loophead, and this is the view from overhead. The line from Loophead falls perfectly out along the approach road to the pier in the harbour and points straight at the statue of Brendan, the navigator, out at the end of that. The next segment of wall points us to Doak Castle in Lahinch. That's the castle on the golf course in Lahinch, and there is a perimeter wall at Doonamore Castle which also lines up with this. The next wall segment we want to look at is the one here with the white arrow, which points away to the south. Now that points directly to a little lighthouse on the Sheephead Peninsula in Cork. Now, they're all the wall segments. Now, we have two more sites to talk about, and they are sites whereby the structures there, if we follow alignment lines away from them, point towards the lighthouse itself at Loophead. The first one is Desmond Castle in Adair. Now, like similar castles, every individual segment of the wall here points us towards other historic sites. In this case, places like Scattery Island and a couple of round towers and another monastery. The building on the bottom left-hand corner of the complex is the blue line in this photograph, and that points straight at the lighthouse at Loophead. Finally, if we go to Newhall House outside of Ennis, near Bellier, and we look at the alignments there are a number of alignments here. Interestingly, we have Loophead Lighthouse and Kinsale Lighthouse on the list at this location. Moire is the other one, away to the east. In this case, it's some of their fields which are aligned with Loophead, in line with the tendency to align walled gardens and fields with round towers and lighthouses. It happens all around the country. I'm sure if we looked around West Clare, West Limerick, North Kerry, we'd probably find other sites similar to Newhall House where gardens, fields and whatever are aligned with the lighthouse. But that's all for now. Thank you.